You're tuning in to the Bueno Power Hour podcast. On this episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast, I speak with Sean Leary. Sean Leary is the frontman of the band Loma Prieta and also part of a couple of side projects out there you guys may know. Bueno, which is now defunct, unfortunately, Mare Island, and his current side project, ELLE. We talk about a couple of things, namely just his upbringing as a musician, the scene life in the Bay Area, and just kind of some old times, man. So yeah, it was a really awesome conversation, and I'm really glad I had him in the podcast. So guys, enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast. I am your host, Arthur Bueno. And I have a very, very special guest here with me. He goes by the name Sean Leary. Sean Leary fronts a band called Loma Prieta, and he's also in other active projects such as Mare Island and ELLE. He also has some previous projects, which are Bueno, and actually one of my other favorites, Archaeopteryx. I haven't heard anything about that band in a long time, and he also has a solo project you can find on Bandcamp called Possessives, which kind of goes into more of an experimental route for Sean. But before we begin, I kind of wanted to throw a fun fact here, and I want to know if you remember this. Okay, so
all right, lay it on me.
Okay, so years ago. I know of Loma Prieta for quite some time. So there was a show that you guys play is when with Derek and Davey, right? Derek and Davey?
Yeah, early on, yeah.
So they were, when they were in the band on the very first EP, for some reason something happened with Val, and I think he broke his hand or something. And so you guys had a show in Fresno at the Plan B, and I think Comadre played there, along with They Call Me Greyhound and Occam's Razor. And what happened is that Jordan Sobolou had to help play drums for your guys' set that night.
Right, I remember this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was crazy.
Yeah, and it was funny because I think that same night, we all went to Jordan's dad's house to go swimming. Do you remember that?
Dude, I do. I couldn't remember when that happened, but it's all kind of coming back.
Yeah. Okay. The funny thing is because Davey is a dork, dude. He's so funny. So that dude, I don't know who, I wanted him or kind of not wanted him, but asked him to, hey man, you want to go skinny dipping? And I think he did that with Mikey O'Connell, and someone smoked him out, and then he was going around saying, yeah man, I'm fucking weed edge, man, I only smoke weed. It was so funny. Everybody was obviously not me, but someone convinced Davey and some other people to go skinny dipping with the Occam's Razor boys, dude. I don't know if you remember that shit.
Oh yeah, it's all very clear, but it was a strange night for sure. And yeah, I recall Davey's his weed edge period where he had a soft edge break that went further and further until he was extremely not edge. But I like the weed edge era the best, honestly. Shit gets weird when you are smoking weed, but you're still, in your mind, you're still straight edge.
Right. It's so hilarious, dude. That guy was such a dork. And man, Sean, this has been sort of a dream come true for me to talk to you again, because I know you've been so busy with projects after projects after projects. And
It keeps going, man.
it
Yeah.
and I've always loved that about you, because there's something about your work ethic and your willingness to work on, exploring new territories musically. So, and we're going to be talking a lot about that today, because, or at least in this episode, because I take a lot after your style, and especially since your newest body of work with ELLE
Mhm.
has probably one of the most captivating, like, songs I've heard you play in a while. And
Well, that's awesome, man.
it
I'm glad you're liking it.
I
I'm
I
uh
I
I'm
love
I'm
it.
really happy with. It's been really cool working on that project, and it's felt pretty natural in a lot of ways because it's with Trey from Bon,
Mm-hmm.
and so he and I and Chris from Bon, and so like I'd been playing with those guys like on and off for like almost 10 years now, and we kind of had a break there for a while. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's a new thing, but it's kind of whenever you work with people kind of as intensely as we did on Bon, like we were playing music several days a week for years. It was like when we picked it back up after you know 2 or 3 years of really not playing together, it was kind of like seamless, but we'd all been listening to different things and playing in other bands and doing other things the whole time. So it was,
Yeah, yeah.
it's cool to see where it goes, because I was kind of like, oh, is this just going to be the same project? But I think in a
No,
lot of ways it's pretty different.
it's totally different. I can't even stress that enough, because now, with Elle, um I think that Elle has more, and because I've been listening to both records pretty seriously,
Mm-hmm.
I guess the self-titled and She, and
Mm-hmm.
it is so good. And I keep thinking, with Trey, every time I listen to each song on the newest record, it feels like he's writing a letter, like either an apology, a goodbye letter to certain things, whether it be like a specific subject, a person, or maybe even the space around him. And
Mm-hmm.
I swear to God, it's so fucking original. Like it really is. It's so original, because I mean, I know that Me Without You and, other bands have sort of, you know, written these kind of like lyrical, like they wrote these songs and have like kind of like a lyrical theme to it, but it just seems as though that Trey has sort of embodied this idea that, I'm gonna write a letter with each song. I don't
Right.
know if that would that's what the theme was, though.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to say, and I think a lot of it has to do like with his delivery specifically, because I know that uh, I think Chris probably wrote at least like a third of the lyrics on this LP,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems so cohesive, like it's all from one mind or something. Especially hearing the way that I think Trey's vocal delivery is, like it's so he's got this like flowing kind of like liquid fluid sort of way of I never can figure out how he's coming up with these ways of laying out lyrics in that structure over music, and it's really interesting to watch, especially like the first we'll work on the music and I know he's got lyrics in mind or he's figuring it out, but then the first time I see him sing and play a song, I'm like, how are you coming up with like these sorts of like loose rhythms? It's just totally interesting to me, because it's not really the way I work.
Right.
Like when I sing in a band, and I yeah, man, I've always really liked Trey's vocal style, but I'm really also glad, like I was saying, the contrast between this and Bon is that I think he really like consciously developed a really different delivery, which does kind of give it that yeah, like this sort of, it's like you're hearing someone read from their diary or something. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yes. Yes. And that's totally true. And I kind of want to go sort of come back and sort of like have you sort of start off kind of your origins, because I mean, from back then till now, I seen Loma Prieta grow, and
Mhm.
you were obviously, at one point the bass rhythm of the band, then I believe the lead singer of Sailboats did, I think, a small EP with Loma.
Right.
And if anybody knows about Sailboats, points to you guys. But if you guys don't know, okay, y'all need to go and check that out. YouTube that shit, because that was some intense like work as well. When you went into Loma, I think that's when Loma Prieta finally found their voice. And so what was your musician like kind of your I guess your influences as you were growing up? And I know that in one interview that you did like in 2014, you were mentioning a band. I think it was called because I didn't even know about this. Is it Shotmaker? Is what it's?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I can kind of
Yeah.
see it. Yeah, I can kind of see it. So yeah, what was your childhood like? You know, kind of growing up and listening to like music up until now.
Yeah, I mean it's been a long time, but yeah, I mean Shotmaker was one of those bands that really sort of marked like a major change in what I was listening to at the time, and that was
Yeah.
in kind of the mid to late '90s. Like I grew up in Sonoma County. I grew up outside of Petaluma, and so I was from kind of like this, relatively small town that was close enough to San Francisco to be able to take the bus down and see shows, which I was really fortunate. So yeah, it kind of started out because Sonoma County, for whatever reason at the time, had this pretty thriving punk scene, and it was sort of connected to what was going on down in Berkeley at Gilman, and it was kind of its own thing, and it was a little bit more like all the punk kids were like very political and super like kind of hippie punk kids who were into Earth First, and like it was as much about music as it was about protesting and about like working Food Not Bombs and all this stuff. And there was like a bunch of really cool stuff going on that sort of, it was like we were close enough to Oakland and San Francisco to kind of know what was going on, but there were all these bands that were sort of doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that drew me in pretty quickly, like, I guess really, it was like when I was maybe 13, I started going to shows all the time and meeting all these people who I'm fortunate to still know most of them. And a lot of people haven't left Sonoma County who were really active in the scene then and who are now like in their 40s and are still making music and stuff, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then through that, there were like my friend Adam LaBelle, who played in some of my favorite bands back then, had like a distro, and I'd just buy whatever he told me was good. And then it went from being basically into, pop punk to like getting into hardcore. And then you'd buy, it's all pre-internet. So it'd be like, I bought like a Born Against record from him. And that was like, it fucking blew my mind. Like I was like, what, this shit is so impossible to listen to. Like I couldn't figure out how people could play. I just couldn't figure out how you'd write those songs.
Yeah.
And I was at the time like playing in bands with my buddies and stuff. And like, just trying to like, the first time you hear shit that's like that raw and like atonal, like I just I couldn't wrap my head around like what Born Against were doing. And so then through like, it was like I was buying their records, and then every time you'd buy a record, whatever label put it out would have put like a little page with everything else they were releasing with descriptions. And so it was like through sort of this weird haphazard way of like sending $3 off to buy the next 7-inch. Like, I just happened to like, I got this Shotmaker record when I was maybe 15 or something. And it was like far and away the craziest shit I'd ever heard. And like, I still, when I listen to the first Shotmaker LP, I'm like, dude, this shit is like so emotional and heavy. I still don't know how they wrote it. And it's super funny because it's one of those bands where like I nerd out on that shit like really hard. And when I like eventually like researched it like a few years ago, there was an interview with one of the dudes, and he was straight up like it just blew my mind that they were like 17 or 18 when they were writing that music.
Really?
I'm like, this is like so complicated, and it was so out of nowhere, and they were just from a small town in Canada and kind of like did something that, I don't know if anyone's really, I mean, it was just a real like innovation on punk, which kind of was going on at that time. And I think I'm still like most inspired when I see new bands who are like doing things that I just don't even know what to call it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was a time when, for whatever reason, really heavy stuff was also getting really interesting. And, like, I think the line between art and hardcore was pretty blurry at the time. And so, it was a cool time to come up. I mean, it's kind of like, it's still sort of like my objectives are all kind of based on that shit that I was hearing in the late 90s, I guess.
Yeah, and that definitely shows. I mean, because Loma Prieta has always been, and even with Bon Navier, I know that you joined in the band like right after it was just formed, but
Right.
there you can kind of tell that there's you have your screamo bands, your hardcore, and your punk bands, but it was always this like kind of approach, an artistic approach to it, and not to mention that you're an artist, outside of being a musician, but Brian is
Mhm.
also a well-known artist. You guys are pretty much both. I'm sure that like the the packaging for these albums are like probably one of the most interesting processes,
Mhm.
along with recording and writing these songs. So Shotmaker LP definitely blew your mind, and you're starting to come up. Basically, Bay Area. You're kind of like contributing to kind of this Bay Area kind of sound,
Mhm.
and so what was it like to kind of like meet all these folks? I know that you met. I guess you can say that it is your best friend when you. I don't know if you met him in high school when you were starting a band with Archaeopteryx. Let's kind of talk
Oh, yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like my really best bud in the world, Devin Rumrill, we met like in junior high school, and it
Mm-hmm.
was, and he was like the only other kid I knew who was sort of like, there were like a handful of kids who were just like, like shithead, like rocker kids in my school, which was like predominantly like, it was sort of like a suburban school with like a country kind of edge to it. Like there were a lot of like shit kicking hit kids. We were
Yeah.
kind of out, it was like, it's funny because Petaluma is not such like a country town anymore, but at the time, and in the early mid 90s, it really felt like it was. And so, yeah, Devin was just like this, I knew him and one other kid who like were into skateboarding and had long hair and just wanted to like play in a band. And so
Mm-hmm.
we started like a super shitty band called Herb Lady. And, and, like the other dude that we were playing music with at the time, like, basically just wanted to like skate and, smoke weed. And Devin and I like were actually pretty interested in like playing music. And so we
Right.
just kept playing from that time. Like it was like the end of 7th grade for me, and then Devin and I like kept playing in bands together all the way through. But it was like by the time we were like 20, I feel like we'd been in 10 bands together or something, which is super funny. And that was kind of when Archaeopteryx, like, that started. As it was the first band that he and I were ever in where we're like, we're just going to be a duo, because it was like, we're like like we're serious about this shit, and it's kind of like the only way to keep it going. And he and I moved out to Philadelphia together with our other buddy and saw a lot of really good shows like the year I lived out there, which was
Mm.
98, 99. That was kind of like getting out of Sonoma County, moved to Philly, saw a whole different side of the world. And the hardcore scene was like really, really different on the East Coast at that time than it was on the
Mm-hmm.
West Coast, which was cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where Archaeopteryx started. And we just kept, we've played and toured a lot for like 5 years.
And not many people
And
know that. That's the funny thing. Not many people know that band actually existed. I knew of it because you know him, Mike Adame.
right, right.
He is the one that actually sort of introduced me to like kind of the Bay Area bands, and
Mhm.
Archaeopteryx was one of them. The Mall, remember the
Oh
Mall?
yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Come
I still make
on,
music
man.
with one of those guys. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, come on, like that classic LP, man. Emergency
Yeah.
at the Everyday. Oh my God,
That's a
come
great
on,
record. Yeah.
great
Yeah.
record.
Yeah.
The Get Go. Like,
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
dude. I mean, I was so invested in it. Like anything that you had orbited, I was invested into it because it was so different. And so, yeah, I mean, so touring for 5 years with Archaeopteryx, and I mean, I guess what else happened after that?
Well, it was kind of like through that band that, it's funny the way when you look back on all this stuff, it's sort of like these chance meetings with people. Like, I met most of the people that I'm still making music with. It was like I met the Sailboats guys because they booked a show and put Archaeopteryx on it. So then I became friends with Derek and Val, and then at some point it was like Val came to like an Archaeopteryx show, and he wanted to put our record out, which was super cool. So it was like the first record he ever put out was that Archaeopteryx 10-inch, and then he and I started talking about playing music together because it seemed like Sailboats was kind of falling apart. And so that was like, I didn't picture at the time that I'd be playing music with those guys like 15 years later, or however long it's been. Like, it's crazy to think about, but at the same time, it was, Sailboats, I mean, that band was so fucking good. Like, just the musicianship was crazy, and to think that those guys were also, this is just so crazy. They were like 18 or 19 years old when I met them, and they like fucking ripped.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
Like, Derek and Val were both as good at that point as they probably are now. Like, it's just nuts to me.
Of course.
Like, and I'm probably as bad as I was then still. So, you know what I mean? Like,
Come on.
You really don't progress much after 19, but, I hitched my horse to a good cart, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I tell you this, man. I mean, like, you've definitely embodied a style that, is, again, it's so original. And obviously, the Sailboats guys, they, that Behind Trees track, I mean, people went fucking ape shit, when I found out about that,
Right.
When I found out about that, I'm like, God damn, like, this is really, and tied in with Loma Prieta, it's like, this is it. Like, this is what Screamo is supposed to sound like, and, I don't know. I mean, so what was it like to, I guess, start off with Loma Prieta, and why the name Loma Prieta?
Oh, yeah, it was funny. It was kind of like, for me at the time, honestly, it just felt like this sort of side project that I was doing from, it was like I was in Archaeopteryx, that was my focus, but I really wanted to play music with those guys, and so I went and played with Derek and Val one time, and they were kind of like, oh, what's Davey from Get Get Go doing? And Davey and I would hang out all the time because at the time we lived in the same part of San Francisco, so I was like, I don't know, I'll call him up. And then Davey totally wanted to come play. And so the initial idea with that band was going to be that it was going to be like Archaeopteryx, where it was just like guitar and drums and super fucking shrill.
Right.
But we were going to be 3 guitars and drums. And it was just going to be like, just like grind, like just nasty sounding. Like, it's so different from what we ended up becoming, which is really funny. But it was like, we're just like, it's going to be some like art shit. It's going to be really fucking hard to listen to. And then as it took shape, it was hard to listen to probably, but like in a different way than it definitely was more like Screamo than I anticipated it being, what I mean? But it's like, none of us could not, like how we just can't write anything but that, I guess.
Right.
So yeah, that was kind of like, yeah, it's funny to think about it, but yeah, that's sort of how it took shape. It was kind of, there wasn't a ton of intent as to what we were going to sound like or anything. It was just kind of like, that's what came out. But also, I guess the music that we were writing then is pretty unrecognizable to what we are now, and also, it's like only Val and I are like the remaining members from the band at that time, I guess, it's kind of like it's just taken a different shape, but things would over that period of time. That was maybe 2004 when we were playing, like writing all the first stuff. That's a while ago, man.
Yeah. It certainly was. It certainly, well, because, like it, and so in my experience with seeing Loma, obviously, talking about the weed edge, bullshit, which I think is so hilarious. I swear to God, I keep thinking about that memory because Jordan is such a dork, and the way he does things is just so dorky. And I wish you were in my like shoes when like this whole like event had happened between me, Mike Adame, and him. But I digress. It was so fucking hilarious. I remember seeing you guys again playing in a Food Not Bombs show in Fresno, and it was actually Occam's Razor's last show.
I remember that one too.
Yeah.
That was great. That was a really good show.
It was so good, and and I think that was the last time I saw you guys, because I had not had the chance to see you guys play Well, actually, no. I take that back because I think the third time I saw you guys play in Oakland. I think at another Food Not Bombs jam, and They Call Me Greyhound played as well. It was show that I took a picture of you, and I actually sent to you via text message, and it was like,
Yeah.
you remember that? Like it was like in like fucking 2007, dude. It was so long ago,
Right.
and I think that was actually the last time I saw you guys play, and knowing that, watching your guys' history and kind of like changing lineups here and there.
Hmm.
The records that you were releasing have always been different, and that's what I loved about it. And one record in particular that I had, I think everybody sort of loves as well from then on, like, was really Last City
Hmm.
and Dark Mountain. Those two records, because they have such and especially for me, I'm really big into math rock.
Right.
Kid Crash was
Oh my
so good, man. And I was like,
Dude.
like,
Yeah, they were one of the best of all time, I think. But,
dude, can we talk about that? Like, fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like, and when I found out, and I was listening to these records, and I realized that you were adapting that sound and then like putting it into like Loma Prieta's like, kind of influences to it. I'm like, first of all, how the fuck is he like, singing and playing these lines at the same time?
Right.
And you and Derek, oh, hold on for a second.
Sure.
Let me just make sure that someone's trying to call me while I'm in an interview.
Yo, dude.
Yo, sorry about that, man.
It's all good.
I don't know what happened there, but anyway, so yeah, basically what I was saying is like, first of all, you playing those lines, those melodies, and singing at the same time. Second of all, your compositions with Derek were so unique. You know what I mean? They were so unique, and Derek, I mean, he was, to me, he was like the first Asian dude that I knew like that could rip like that and had actually played these like arpeggiated like style of melodies and stuff. And I'm just like, dude, like, how are these guys doing it? So you were a big fan of Kid Crash at the time. Were you listening to their records heavily on those two records that you guys released?
I think it was kind of like concurrent. Like I remember Jokes coming out kind of like listening. I recall really being super into that record like the month we were kind of tracking Last City.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd kind of written, I mean, I think we'd written the bulk of that record. It took a long time to write.
Yeah.
And I loved Kid Crash, and I loved their first record a lot too, New Ruins. But yeah, I think it probably had a huge influence on Dark Mountain. And I think that Derek's style is just like totally, I think he was coming out of I think that Kid Crash and like Derek was always turning me on to all this post-rock stuff that I'd never really been into. I think they were just really coming from a similar spot, which is interesting because I do think there's so many parallels. And then it was like, we did kind of like a West Coast tour with Kid Crash, sort of, I guess it was, I'm trying to think. I think it was right when Dark Mountain came out. So it was kind of like they were like the one other band on the West Coast that, there were a bunch of bands that we were sort of, I think, shared like a similar mentality as, like Comadre at the time, and Who Calls So Loud, and some other bands that were going on at the time. But it was like, I felt like us and Kid Crash really made sense together. But, it was a funny thing because I remember going on tour with those guys and having it be kind of like hit and miss. Like I was sort of like, whoa, I thought that, to me, I was like, Kid Crash have to be the biggest band on earth because they're the best band on earth.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then it was just like business as usual, just going and playing kind of like small DIY basement shows and stuff with those guys and just being like, how is everybody not here? You know what I mean? Like I felt like thousands of people should have been watching that band.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Because they're so talented, and they really pulled it off live better than certainly better than we did. Like they're just like flawless, like at least as good sounding as the record. And and all the bands that like John and Alex are still playing in are like equally good. Like I've never heard them like slip up. It's crazy. Those guys are so talented.
Man, yeah, it said "Who Calls So Loud." That's such a classic band, and that's what I'm saying, man. Like I feel that Loma Prieta had really helped get Bay Area noticed for this kind of sound of screamo and shit, and and so you got these records kind of coming out. I don't know what the timeline was after Dark Mountain. But you guys then, a year or so later after Dark Mountain, you release Lifeless, you release Four, and then you release Self Portrait, and in between that, you went in and joined Bon Iver. Now, again, reading on an interview, it was with Trey, and who else was it? Who else was also part of that band?
In Bon Iver?
Yeah.
John Schmidt, and Chrissy Deckwu.
Okay.
So it's like, Trey and Chris are both in ELLE. John just moved to France actually, but he's been in Seattle for basically that was kind of when Bon Iver like stopped playing, was when John moved to Seattle, which is about 5 or 6 years ago now probably.
Yeah. And it was kind of interesting. So in Bon Iver and on this interview that I had read, you joined in. You kind of are sort of, I don't know, trying to figure out your sort of place with the band. You didn't want to interfere with their the writing and such, but it seemed as though when you joined the band, and I believe on the first record, for a second record that is. A Bon Iver, it was Hours, right?
Hours was the first full length,
right?
And it was basically like they had a demo, and that was I joined the band because things weren't really like working out between them and their guitar player when they had this demo. So, I've been like pretty good friends with John for a while. Like I met him. Archaeopteryx played with a band that he was in years before, and we'd always kind of kept up. And Trey played in Haikus, who Loma had played with, and so it was like I knew those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really know either of them to be super like actively playing in any bands. And I kept hearing they were in this new band, and so I went to see them play a show, and they were a 3-piece. And I was like, oh, I heard some of your songs online. Did you like overdub a bunch of guitars or what's up? And they're like, oh no, our guitar player just left.
Wow.
Are you interested in playing guitar in this band? So they were a pretty new band. Like they'd played maybe I think the show I saw was maybe their third or fourth show, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only one they ever played is a 3-piece. And they were just like, I couldn't even, it was like a really fucking intense house show in Oakland. And you couldn't really tell like what it sounded like, except that it was just intense and it was crazy. And I was like, but I'd heard the tape and it was just super good, so I was like,
yeah.
I was like, yeah, man, I'll come like sit in and play. And then, like 15 minutes into the first practice, I was like, yeah, so when are you guys playing again? Can I come back? Like, let's do this shit. Like, let me buy a second amp and keep it here. Like, let's do this,
Yeah, dude.
It was just like that.
The show that I saw you play in, it was online, and man, YouTube is such a big. It was starting to come up, and so there was a show that you played with Bon Iver at some house in Sacramento. I think.
My god, dude, that show was fucking weird as shit.
Dude, it was so strange. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And like, I know what the fuck you're talking. You know what I'm talking about, and I remembered you. It was like a small little EP, or it was from a song that you guys did a split with what was the band? It was from Canada. Man, I cannot even remember right now.
Dude, there were so many. That band also just like put out more records like than any band I've ever been in. So I
Yeah.
can't speak to what song that might have been because I don't think I have all those records even.
Really?
Dude,
Man, it's so.
they were coming out real fast.
Well, that's the thing is that like it was always you guys were so prolific at like having like just bodies of work available, which was crazy. Like I remembered one of my favorite splits that you guys did is with Suffix.
Mm-hmm.
Man, and that turned into Lord Snow and
Right.
oh yeah, this is the band. The Discord of a Forgotten Sketch. That
Oh
was,
God, yeah.
dude, man, they were so
That shit was
good.
good.
They were
Yeah, yeah.
so good. And so it was from one song that I remembered you guys were playing. I think it was called These Waves. Yeah.
Oh right. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And it was in that show, that Sacramento show. I remembered watching it, and it was so strange because like the energy inside that room was like they didn't know what the fuck was happening, but you guys were just, you know what I mean? And like and I think one, like there was only one microphone,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it was like Trey and the other dude like just like screaming on the microphone like the whole time, and you're just right there just like, yep, I'm just gonna play these. I'm just gonna like play these songs with these guys.
I was just trying to hold it down, man. We were. It was like always just Chris and I in the back, like trying to like make sure there was some semblance of a song happening, and then the rest, was just wild card. But I remember that show being. I mean, when I think back on, there's always all these shows where something is just totally fucking bizarre. But that show was weird because it was like these kids had this house in Sacramento. It was like a fourplex, like two apartments on top, two on the bottom.
Yep.
And they had this apartment on the bottom floor. And I think that they were like, it was like the dude was like, oh, me and my girlfriend broke up. Like she moved out. I got to move out. The security deposit was really expensive. So he bought this roll of like plastic sheeting and he taped it. Like he covered the entire floor and most of the walls in these plastic sheeting so that he could have like a blowout show, but like not lose his security deposit.
Dang.
And I mean, kind of a genius idea, I guess, but it was just like just another one of those shows with a totally weird vibe where you're like, all right, man, well, we're playing in this plastic room and it's like 100 degrees and like half the people here are like super into it and half the people here who know, like, I have no idea what's going on. And, I mean, that might've been the last time I played in Sacramento. That was like maybe 2010 or something, but
yeah. That looked
that was a
strange.
really weird and cool show. And then at some point, John just straight up threw his bass at the ground and it just like exploded. Like he broke his bass irreparably, and he like loved his bass, but it was like we played this song that he had some crazy connection to, and he actually, there were multiple times where John broke a bass playing that song.
That's
like
so strange.
It got to this point where we were like, yo man, we can't play that song anymore. Like we can't afford it, dude. Like there's no way. It's too expensive.
And it was that SG Epiphone bass, right? That he broke, or was it something else? Was it?
It's like he always would play these PVP 90s.
Okay.
And he still, I think, plays those, but he just kept breaking the headstock. Like he would fucking throw it so hard. It was really athletic.
Yeah. No, he was one of the craziest ones out of that whole like group, man. I like his energy was just like so like explosive, and I kind of take part in that because like I love that kind of shit. I love how like people can get down. You know what I mean?
For sure.
But so now like I mean the history with Bon Iver. Obviously, you guys had to stop because John had moved to Seattle. I was hoping to see you guys create a new record, hopefully in the future, and then you had lineup changes. I believe this was at the same time. Lineup changes with Loma Prieta,
right?
Bringing in Brian from Punch / Us Haunted Bodies. Right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Man, I don't know how I remembered that, but I remember Jordan. Yeah, I swear to God, dude. There's a lot of history that I've kind of kept up until I don't know if it was because I was building up to a moment like this. Because if I were to have met you or seen you in the Bay Area, I would have been like, Sean, can we like hang out and eat and just talk about shit? And this is
Right,
probably
right,
what it is. And
right.
so I have only known of Brian because he actually dated this girl from Fresno, and he was also he was doing some design work too. He had like a couple of shirts that he was
Mhm.
selling. Um, so with that kind of these lineup changes happening, Bonavere is I think now kind of like falling off. Brian seemed like he helped you bring out that dark kind of path to Loma Prieta, and having Lifeless, having Four be one of the darkest records in your guys' discography. Was he one of the reasons why you guys became more of a heavy hitter in Loma Prieta? Like, was those records because of him being part of the band, or was it just like you guys had agreed that we need to kind of like hit harder?
I think, yeah. I mean, I think it definitely has to do with. I mean, certainly, yeah. Like, I would say that Brian definitely wanted us to be heavier, and I mean, he was playing bass in Loma Prieta.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he played on Dark Mountain. He joined the band for the kind of the first tour we did when we released Last City. So it was like we recorded that record mainly as a three piece, and then the first time we toured Europe, Brian was like our buddy who was always around, and he'd like be hanging out at practice and stuff, and we were kind of like, hey man, you're good at bass, you want to come to Europe? And he's like, yeah, fuck yeah. So he like skipped his college graduation, came on tour with us, uh, and we just like have been ruining his life ever since, and that was 10 years ago. um, but it was funny because it was like at some point, after we put Dark Mountain out, Derek decided that like it was not working. Like he, was smart enough to kind of be like not totally career focused, but enough that I think it was kind of like, like for me, I was just always like, I don't know what else I'm gonna do. Like all I want to do is play in a band and like tour
Right.
and shit.
Right.
And I think that there was just diminishing returns for Derek, and at some point he just decided that like, it just wasn't working, and there was a bunch of reasons why I think Derek just didn't want to keep trying to push the rock up the hill. So
Mm-hmm.
then it was like, I think for 3 months or something there, it was kind of like maybe our band isn't gonna do anything anymore. Like we didn't really know, but then like Brian and I started working on more stuff, and that became Lifeless. And I think mainly what we started to realize after having like written these two really complicated, really mathy records, Last City and Dark Mountain, it was like these records are really like they've been really fun to write and record. It's really hard to play this shit live and enjoy yourself at all.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're kind of getting away from like all of the really intense, like kind of, like interesting hard. Like I felt less like I was in a hardcore band than I'd ever felt, and so it was kind of like, let's write some really like, let's write some like hardcore shit that's going to be fun to play live. And I think that was what happened with Lifeless, and then with IV also, it was like, yeah, like we just started writing music that was more immediate, and that like when we were writing it, we were like, we'd finish writing a song and I'd be like, fuck man, my neck hurts, dude. I've been headbanging so hard. Like this is awesome. Like I haven't felt this way in a long time. You know what I mean? And it's funny because that stuff was all happening when I was like about, like turning 30. I was kind of like, oh shit, should I be like, I should be acting grown up and like writing some like sophisticated chill, like, folksy shit. But I'm like, this feels right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm, I felt like we're like getting back to what the whole point of the thing was. So yeah, definitely. I think like, I mean, that's always, and Brian's mentality musically is always like, he likes super intense shit, or if it's going to be heavy, it better be like
Heavy.
out of control.
Yeah, it better be heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So that it's always been really fun to write with him, like on that level, and like that he approaches things in like a really unconventional way, which is, at least what I would like to I'd like to consider myself as someone that does that too. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we've always jived well together.
So, your last record that you've released since was Self Portrait, and
Mm.
you know, having kind of listened to that record, and you guys kind of going back a little bit more into the experimental approach of the band. You know, Anthony Fantano had actually like reviewed it, and he was just kind of like weirded out about like kind of your approach to it. And it was funny. It was kind of strange because, you know, this is a guy that actually you know, listens to crazy shit. Like
Right.
you know, he's all about experimentation. You know what I mean? But
Right. Right.
in this particular kind of setting, it was kind of like, you know, I don't know, you know, and I kind of understand because, you know, in that record, like it really kind of separated sort of hardcore and then like this kind of like experimental like vocal I guess compositions that you were kind of going for. I mean, what was kind of the influence with that? Was it just because you wanted to kind of mix it up?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we really, um, like, honestly, it was kind of like after Dark Mountain, like every record that we were releasing, whether or not anyone else sort of like picked up on it, we were trying to go in like a really different direction from the last record. You know what I mean? So it was like we felt like when we put out Lifeless, you know, that it was like, okay, well, this is a really obvious break from what we just did, and like just sort of to make a statement, I guess. You know what I mean? And to try and
Yeah.
like showcase that we have some sort of like some depth or some ability to like I just don't want to make the same records over and over again, because I feel like bands do that, and you know, like when bands do that, I'm always kind of like, well, I only needed one or two of that record. Like I don't need like a whole career. I don't need 15 years of that record. I don't need you
Yeah.
to keep putting out a record every 2 years so you can tour, unless you're going to like give me something that feels fresh or something. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that was kind of the approach. And, you know, I think I mean, like, I never really know either, you know, it's like you put records out and you're not totally sure of what they are, or like if you're hitting the targets that you were aiming for or anything else. And we've never really been the band to super like discuss what genre we are, or like what we're, you know, we're not really trying to emulate anyone, but you know, you kind of do what comes natural. But definitely, yeah, Self-Portrait to me, like, yeah, I think we were trying to do something that was just like still punk and still driving, but just in like a really different direction.
Yeah.
And I felt like we succeeded, but it was funny because we did kind of like I recall, yeah, I sort of just remember like people not really knowing what to make of it, which to me was sort of like, I'm like, oh, cool, like we did it, you know, like we
Yeah.
succeeded.
Yeah.
I don't think like, and I don't know if like, it was, yeah, it was funny. It was like, you know, like that review in particular, I recall being sort of like, oh, that's interesting that like this dude doesn't, I just felt like he was just contrasting it with the last record. But we had a kind of a funny thing too, because Loma Prieta was like so DIY, like the whole, like we had, you know, basically what, 4 LPs that were kind of like self-released.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then IV came out on Death Wish, and I think a ton of people thought that we were a new band and that was our first record, and like never really did any investigation,
That's
which is
so
totally fair.
strange. That's so
But
strange.
it just kind of, it's like Death Wish is like a scene unto itself, kind of. And I didn't even realize that kind of going into it. I was just like, dude, like I grew up loving Converge. Jake from Converge wants to put our record out. Like this is the cool, like fucking nothing cooler's ever happened, you know?
Yeah.
But it was kind of interesting that, you know, Self-Portrait came out, and I think a lot of people were like, oh, this is this band's second record, and it's so different from the last record they put out.
Wow.
And I'm kind of like, well, you know, looking back through it, every one of our records has been really different. It's sort of like the only theme is that they're all different. But yeah, that record was really fun to make. We recorded like twice as many songs as actually made it on the record, so there's still a bunch of stuff sitting around that we're kind of trying to figure out what to do with still. And yeah, It's cool, man. I just like recording shit.
I know you do. I know you do, and it shows. It definitely shows. I'm just so happy that you guys are still at it, and I know that you have came back from tour in Europe about a month or so ago, right? Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and so you have a tour coming up in November, and I was kind of just seeing what the sort of status is with Loma Prieta. I mean, have you guys had any kind of thoughts on like releasing a new record sometime this year, next year? Are you guys like recording anything new? Are you gonna do like a B-sides like kind of thing? Like what's happening with Loma these days?
We have some stuff going on. We're going into the studio to finish working on. I don't know what it's for, but we actually are meeting up this week to go in the studio and work on some stuff that would be, we have some songs that we haven't recorded yet. We have a bunch of tracks that we have and we need to mix, and so we're kind of like trying to figure. It's like there's always this checklist of things going on with that band. It's kind of like we work on it a bunch, but two of the guys live on the East Coast now too, so it's like just Val and I are here in the Bay Area, and it's fits and starts kind of.
And I understand that. I know that you guys are now sort of separated and stuff. And that's kind of with a lot of bands that have played for extended length of time, much like Deerhoof. They actually,
Right.
Two of the members I think live in Seattle and the other two live in New York. I'm not even sure about that. Don't get me on that one. But but it's kind of nice to know that. And so now I guess I wanted to kind of talk about sort of in this leg of the interview is that your current active projects. And so I know that Mare Island and ELLE have been sort of a fluent kind of thing for you. You'll play shows with Mare Island here and there, but kind of the most active one currently is ELLE, because you guys have released the newest record and had released the other record I think about a couple of months ago, I believe, or last year. I'm not even sure. My timelines are all fucked up, but
It's all, yeah. I think you're about on the money there. Yeah.
yeah, and what I think I was so happy to know, and I texted you this I think yesterday or so, a couple of days ago, I don't remember, that I was so happy that you are going into more of the emotive route, because knowing from those records from Dark Mountain, Last City, they were emotive records. They were definitely
Right.
emotive records. But
Right.
what was so interesting about Mare Island and ELLE is that you're kind of channeling a new side of yourself that I've never got a chance to see until now. And I'm guessing that 'cause it's one of the members from the Velveteen, right? Is that what I'm understanding? That's playing with you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's Josh from the Velveteen and the New Trust, and a million great bands. And we grew up together in Sonoma County, and so it's like I've been trying to get Josh to play music with me for 20 years, but finally locked him down.
You did, and one of my favorite records is still Out of the Fierce Parade. Was one of the biggest records for me. But to be honest, I wasn't attracted as much with Mare Island as I was with ELLE, because it's almost as like you're kind of going back into the basics, but you're sort of tinkering, what you've done before, and then kind of making it a little bit different. So you playing with Trey.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, man. What kind of, I guess, captivated you to kind of play those chords, those arpeggios, those emotive? Like I've always wanted to know, like, are you doing different tunings? Are you doing standard? Are you doing drop D? What kind of amp are you using? Are you still using that really like shredded out like Gibson Les Paul that you played like all the time?
Whenever possible. Yeah, no, that band, the tunings are, I mean, it's definitely not standard tunings, and it's like, yeah, I have a problem like with too many tunings, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
it's really, I mean, with Mare Island, it's like every song is in a different tuning, and it makes playing live like kind of complicated. But at least with Elle, there's only really like I'm in a couple tunings. I think Trey only uses two different tunings. We're not tuned the same as each other, and that's been kind of like I think that's a big part of the sound of that band is like, in Elle, like when Trey initially had like a group of sort of riffs that he had in this really weird tuning that I was trying to fuck with it and I just like couldn't. It was like too major sounding, and so then I kind of created this like minor complement tuning that's like
Yeah.
really like far from his, where I'm playing like fully different gauge strings, and a lot of my strings are too much lower than his.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like it's interesting. It's almost like you get in a tuning that you're uncomfortable with, and it sort of adds these limitations that like for some reason it's almost like not quite understanding that tuning makes me write things that I feel are more like inventive.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And
so that, you know, that's kind of been the approach with that band, but also it's like as I get more comfortable with these tunings, I feel like you know, it's yeah, I'm kind of like I'm learning how to use them better, but it's, you know, sort of there was definitely like an intent there where it was like I saw what he was doing with his tunings and I was like, all right, I'm gonna like try and create like a minor complement to that.
that is like, that's so artsy of you. It's so like, come on, man. Like really, like that is so artsy of you. And do you do that? Do you have that same kind of approach in Loma Prieta? Because I know that Brian had posted something up like a while back.
Mhm.
It was a picture of you and Brian. You know, I think like in some room, uh, and you guys were kind of just working out like these really like fucked up tunings.
Mhm.
Does that also meld in Loma Prieta?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's always been kind of a thing, and I mean, you know, I learned that bad habit from Derek early in Loma Prieta, and then it's kind of like it became sort of like something that band does, you know, and so it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, Brian and I are into some pretty some oddball tunings, and it's like it's really funny to try and like write a set list with that band because then you have to figure out like who's tuned to what per song and like figure out how to transition things and like how many guitars each guitar player is going to need in order to like do things at all seamlessly. But fortunately we haven't done like, you know, multiple tunings within a song or anything
Yeah, yeah.
like I'm only tuned to one thing per song, so that's cool. I don't have to stop in the middle and retune or anything.
Right, right. And
That's what I'm trying to avoid is
yeah,
actually, you know, because you can't do that.
yeah. You can't. You really can't. And
Mm-mm. No.
I, because I've always wondered how like you got that heavy sound. And I was like, yeah, those guys have to be doing some sort of fucked up tuning. And, um, goddamn, Sean, I've always wanted to ask you that. You don't even know. Like, you don't even fucking know, man. You
Dude, I'm an
know,
open book, man, you know?
I love it, and I love the fact that you're talking with me, having this kind of conversation, which kind of I'm so appreciative, and I really appreciate it, and I kind of want to sort of like kind of go towards the end of the interview and kind of talk about Elle a little bit more,
Mhm.
since I've been kind of putting these records on repeat. Um, and knowingly that Loma Prieta is still as healthy as it was from its inceptions. What else do you have planned that we could maybe know about? And is Elle gonna be like I have a really strong relationship with Elle right now, as much as I do with Loma. I really
Awesome,
do.
man.
You know
That's
what I mean?
great. That's awesome. I
It-
like to hear that.
you know what
That's
I
great.
mean? And
Me too. But
it's my like it's that girlfriend that I've never thought I wanted, but I have. You know what I mean? Like you know what I'm saying?
that's funny.
Like I love it. A friend of mine, Stephen Thomas, we talk about it. We talk about it about like kind of of this record here and there.
Hmm.
And are you guys going to be touring with this band, or is it just a band mainly for the West Coast?
I think we're gonna tour. It's it's kind of interesting. It's like um, our drummer Chris just moved to Norway like
Mm,
maybe a month ago.
wow.
And so that's been kind of this interesting thing where we've been writing this LP kind of knowing that like the band is in no way done, but it's definitely just like, it's funny because we kind of spent like a year writing that record and really not playing shows because we were focused on that, and then kind of knowing we're going to put this record out, and then the plan is to go and tour in Europe, I think in like sometime next year, because Chris already lives out there. And he's going to come back and we're going to play shows out here and stuff. So we're trying to figure something out for the next couple months, but you know, it's just another complicated long distance band situation, which I'm pretty well versed in. So I'm not even, you know, I'm not tripping on it, man. I know it's all going to work out.
Yeah.
And if not, I'm in a million bands. It's cool, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so we definitely have some plans, and in a way, having things be that way kind of makes it more intentional, where you're like, all right, like I noticed this in Loma Prieta where, you know, we've had for the last, you know, 6 or 7 years, there's been someone who hasn't lived locally. And it's like, that means that when you all get together, you fully just focus on the band. And it's not the kind of thing where you're like, when everyone lives in the same city, there's this sort of attitude of like, well, we just get together on Monday nights and we play, but like maybe, you know, everyone flakes or whatever, you know, like people, like it makes it so that you just sort of feel like inevitably you're going to have time to get to it. And it kind of does create this urgency and focus when you're like, okay, we're going to get together and like really like hammer on this thing for like, you know, 10 days. And we're going to get together and practice for this tour. And then instead of just playing one local show, we're going to like do a US tour, you know, like that kind of thing.
Man, there's so much I want to ask you in this interview, but I'm going to have to have you come back because, you know, I really, you know, definitely wanted to talk to you more about kind of the Bay Area sound and how you guys meld it. And I think now, you know, having at the time with Loma Prieta, Comadre, Bon Navier, and all these bands come up, and having like, you know, Jack Shirley be sort of the vessel of helping you guys bring these things out. Yeah, I definitely, for sure. I definitely have to get you back on the podcast and talk to me about it. But I want to say, Sean, thank you very much, dude, for kind of joining me in this conversation. It's been such a great time, like seeing you progress as a musician, and I just want to let you know something, man. For most people, like myself, you know, obviously, I still play music. I'm still trying to write a record myself, you know. I'm planning to move back to California, and hopefully I can, you know, join in and, you know, kind of be able to play alongside with you guys someday.
Awesome, man. Yeah.
You know, and and so I got to tell you that you and Brian, Loma Prieta, Bon Navier, and especially ELLE now have been such a big influence in how I'm playing music these days and how I'm approaching it. And I don't think, and I loved how humble you are and how like kind of centered you are as a person, as an artist, and just saying that, you know, I just want to write music and to share it to people. How humbling, how much of an influence you are to not only the people in the Bay Area but around the world who continue to listen to your music. You know, you've done records with Rain, you know, you've done records with bands from Canada, and, you know, you've toured along Europe quite a bit. You know, one thing's for sure is that I hope that you don't give up, and I cannot see you do that. I cannot see you do that. I swear that I would be
unfortunately, man.
You know what I mean? I swear I can't have you do that. And one thing that I've always loved about your work is that it's always been different and it's always been innovative. At least for me, people won't be able to understand it until it's like too late. And I think I caught on to your playing quite a bit. It's like you're playing, you know, Comadre's like style of like, you know, playing Justin from, you know, Graf Orlock / you know, Ghost Limb, like a big fan of his work. you guys really have shaped California West Coast sound and really helped, bring out, what people are trying to, play.
That's awesome. It's cool to hear it sort of like laid out. It's cool to hear a distillation of. I'm close to it, so it's like, yeah. But I think, yeah, that's interesting. And man, being on a list with Justin and Jack Shirley and the people you're mentioning is like, that's a huge honor.
Honestly, man, it's really, you really have it, and you really continue to keep at it, and that is the most punk fucking thing. Like, you're so not lazy. You know what I mean?
Man, it's just fun, What are you gonna do?
I know.
To have fun.
I know. You're not stubborn, or you're stubborn in the aspect like, I just don't want to stop, And I told
Right.
that same thing with Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I told him, I was like, dude, you're so stupidly responsible, and he's just so like, he was just fucking cracking up. Is there anything that you wanted to shout out before we end the episode?
I just want to thank you for having me on, man. This is awesome. It's really good to talk to you. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Hopefully I see you back out here on the West Coast one of these days. And yeah, man, just thanks for having me on and for all the kind words and just hearing me ramble.
Man, it's been a dream come true being able to talk with you and be able to document this on a podcast that is about my influences. And so, Sean, thank you very much, man. I'm going to see you out there in Cali soon. I have your number. And text me your email, dude. I'm going to send you a song that I worked on. So
hell yeah, I will.
I'll definitely reach out to you once again, man. Sean, thank you very much for being part of the podcast, man. I'll see you later, dude.
Yeah, thanks so much, man.
Laters.
Bye.
And that ends this episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast. I want to say thank you to Sean for giving me the chance to have a conversation with him about, his journey as a musician and some of the bands that he was in and he was currently in, and I'm like so inspired by. And man, it was so fun talking with him, just because I've been fanboying this dude for a long time, along with Brian, which I hope to get him also on the podcast. Sean embodies a really great mindset in music and work ethic, and being able to just be part of it, part of this conversation with him and kind of living a little bit into his life, his journey up until now has just been pretty amazing. And I can't stress enough that, his bands have really inspired me to play the type of music I play today. So again, I wanted to say thank you, Sean, for giving me that opportunity to speak to you and really just geek out on shit. Yeah, guys, I really appreciate you guys coming around and listening to this conversation. So I got, I think, a couple of more interviews lined up here, and hopefully I can get those out. Try to keep that schedule of putting out content. I think this is kind of going well, and I'm definitely wanting to kind of continue on this rhythm. If you like this episode, so go ahead and hit that like button. If you want episodes of the podcast, I usually do it every other week. Go ahead and subscribe, and if you want notifications on anything that I update, hit up the bell as well. You can also find me on Instagram, Bueno Power, Facebook, Bueno Power. I also have a website, arthurbueno.com. Showcases all my photography, and as well as buenopower.com is my blog. And I also have myself, music that I am releasing as well. Lost Loves, lstlvs.bandcamp.com. So check those out. And guys, thank you very much for listening in. Until next time, I'll see you later.